Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. When a person reads through the books of Hadith, then a person finds certain narrators whose names appear quite often, due to the number of ahadith that have been narrated through them. And it's amongst these famous narrators of Hadith that we find yet another great Imam. His name is Imam Thaabit Al-Bunaani Rahimahullaah. Imam Thaabit Al-Bunaani Rahimahullah's real name is Imam Thaabit ibn Aslam Rahimahullah. And Bunaani is a familial title from Bunana ibn Sa'ad ibn Lu'ay ibn Ghalib, and thus he is referred to as Imam Thaabit al-Bunaani Rahimahullah. Imam Thaabit al-Bunaani Rahimahullah was born in the year 41 after Hijrah, during the Khilafah of Hazrat Muawiyah radiyallahu anhu, and he was a freed slave, and he lived much of his life in Basra in Iraq. Living in Basra meant that it was inevitable that Imam Thaabit rahimahullah would end up studying under Hazrat Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu anhu. And he not only just ended up being a student of Hazrat Anas radiyallahu anhu, rather he became one of the best and most beloved students to Hazrat Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu anhu. Besides studying by Hazrat Anas radiyallahu anhu, Imam Thaabit rahimahullah also studied under Hazrat Abdullah ibn Zubayr radiyallahu anhuma, Hazrat Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhuma, and many more. Imam Thaabit al-Bunaani rahimahullah quickly became one of the leading authorities on the ahadith reported by Hazrat Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu anhu, as he was one of the primary ulama that the next generation of ulama studied under. And that is why many of the ahadith of Hazrat Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu anhu ends up having Imam Thaabit al-Bunaani rahimahullah in the chain. The reason for Imam Thaabit rahimahullah reaching this level was from him not spending 1 or 2 years studying by Hazrat Anas radiyallahu anhu. Rather, Imam Thaabit al-Bunaani rahimahullah accompanied and studied by Hazrat Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu anhu for 40 years. Imam Thaabit al-Bunaani rahimahullah was a muhaddith with an impeccable memory. And one day, Imam Hammad ibn Salama rahimahullah wanted to test the memory and accuracy of Imam Thaabit al-Bunaani rahimahullah. So Imam Hammad ibn Salama rahimahullah began narrating a hadith to him for verification. But what he did was that he changed narrators around and changed their order in the chain of narration. After listening to him narrate the ahadith in this fashion, Imam Thaabit al-Bunaani rahimahullah began to narrate the ahadith back to him, this time with the correct chains. And he put every narrator in his correct place in the chain the way it's supposed to be. And thus it was established without a shadow of doubt that Imam Thaabit al-Bunaani rahimahullah was a person who narrated the ahadith with full understanding and was not someone that took chances when narrating ahadith. Besides being such a knowledgeable Imam in the deen, Imam Thaabit al-Bunaani rahimahullah has something else that's special about him, which not only rivals his rank in knowledge, in fact it even surpasses it. And that special feature about him is his piety, particularly his performance of salah. It used to be said about Imam Thaabit al-Bunaani rahimahullah that he would be engaged in salah day and night outside of the time when he would be studying or teaching. Because for Imam Thaabit al-Bunaani rahimahullah, the thing that gave him happiness and pleasure in life was the performance of salah. It was the habit of Imam Thaabit rahimahullah that whenever he would pass a masjid, then he would stop over in order to perform salah there. So if he would travel from one place to another and pass 10 masajid on the road, then he would pause at every single masjid in order to perform salah therein. But there was a particular practice that Imam Thaabit rahimahullah used to do, that Allah accepted from him, and this is something that was seen after he passed away. After Imam Thaabit rahimahullah passed away and he was placed in his qabr, as the qabr was being closed, one of the slabs that covered the lahad of the qabr fell down. And the person that was burying Imam Thaabit rahimahullah had his gaze caught by something in the qabr. Because as he looked into the lahad, it had become spacious, and he saw Imam Thaabit rahimahullah standing in his qabr performing salah. So this man turned to the other man who was assisting with the burial, who most likely was Imam Humayd al-Tawil rahimahullah, and he asked him, "Are you seeing what I am seeing?" But this Imam told him to keep silent and not mention anything. So the qabr was closed again, and the people went their way, while these two people now went to Imam Thaabit al-Bunaani rahimahullah's daughter, and they asked her, "What deed was it that your father used to do?" Imam Thaabit Rahimahullah's daughter was intelligent and immediately understood the reason for their visit. So she told them, "First tell me, what was it that you saw?" So they related to her what had transpired and what they saw of Imam Thaabit Al-Bunaani Rahimahullah performing salah in his qabr. Imam Thaabit Rahimahullah's daughter now answered their question and told them, "My father used to perform salah all night for 50 years. And when it was the final part of the night before Fajr, my father used to make this dua saying, 'O Allah, if you have granted any of your creation the ability to perform salah in their graves, then grant it to me.'" And thus it was only after Imam Thaabit Rahimahullah passed away that Allah made it known that this dua of his was accepted, and Allah had entered him into the highest levels of the Illiyin to be with the Anbiya, the Siddiqeen, the Shuhada and the Salihin, and Allah granted his body in the grave the ability to perform salah there too. Imam Thaabit Rahimahullah also used to fast every day of his life besides the prohibited days, and he would cry abundantly in front of Allah. One day, Hazrat Anas radiyallahu anhu was looking at Imam Thaabit Al-Bunaani Rahimahullah and told him, "Your eyes resemble so much the eyes of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam." Hearing this made Imam Thaabit Rahimahullah so happy that he cried out of happiness until his eyes became weak. When his eyes were not recovering because of him crying daily, a doctor told Imam Thaabit Rahimahullah that in order for his eyes to be cured, he must not cry. So Imam Thaabit Rahimahullah said, "What good is there in eyes that do not cry in front of Allah?" So he refused to take the doctor's advice and would continue to cry while worshipping Allah. It was also the habit of Imam Thaabit Rahimahullah to recite the entire Quran every single day. And Imam Thaabit Rahimahullah stated that there's not a pillar in the Jami' Masjid, but that he had recited an entire khatam of the Quran and cried by that pillar. The greatness of Imam Thaabit Rahimahullah was attested to by everyone, to the point that the people used to say and use Imam Thaabit Rahimahullah as an example of piety. And they would also say that he was the most devout worshipper of Allah of his time. But besides the people, this was even attested to by Hazrat Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu anhu, who said, "Goodness has keys, and Imam Thaabit Rahimahullah is from the keys to goodness." Imam Thaabit Al-Bunaani Rahimahullah passed away in the year 127 after Hijrah, at the age of 86 years old, after worshipping Allah with the utmost love and sincerity. And it was said that when people would visit his grave, then they would hear the recitation of the Quran coming from inside the qabr. May Allah make us people of salah, of fasting, and of reciting the Quran, and make us amongst those who find the coolness of our eyes in the worship of Allah. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen, wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.